You know what I really hate is when people start videos and they're not prepared and they leave little things like this in frame. Hello everyone. My name is Jay Kraft, and you're probably wondering where the Sunday show is. Well, it's not here, and it's not here because I am still not doing the best health-wise. It's turned out that I've come down with bronchitis. We are on day 10 or 11 now, and I've heard that it can last up to 20 days. So I'm in the process of getting better. I've got a hard candy right now in lieu of a cough drop because I can't talk for 2 hours straight at the same high energy that I normally do. So I thought I would do a little bit of a simpler video that I could do a little bit of editing for you and just kind of slap it together and get it out the door by 5 o'clock today, because I know some of you do look forward to having that background audio and hearing my opinion or thoughts or beliefs on certain things in the world of reselling. So on our Facebook group, link down below, I went ahead and asked the question, would you guys like to ask any questions about anything that I do? Would you like to know about my views on certain things or certain facets of my life, certain things about eBay? And we had a handful of responses, so I thought I would take a minute and talk with you about those things and try not to cough. Not cough too much, just because I can edit those out and it makes life a lot easier than trying to cough while on air with you. So first up, let's see, we have a question from Amy Blackwell. She says, "Hi Jay, sorry to hear that you're sick. Tea with lemon and honey is great for coughs and throats." Thank you so much for that. Mom advice. So I'll just ask the first question. Maybe I've missed it, but I've never heard you talk about your family life, like parents, siblings. Also, where are you from? I'm just curious how you got to where you are. You are very accomplished for being so young. Thank you. If that's too personal, my apologies. I've just always wondered. So I guess we'll start with the easiest of ones, which is where I am from. I was originally born and raised in Fresno, California. I spent quite a large portion of my life there, and I left again for what I believe is the sixth time now to come live here in Bakersfield, which is just about 2 hours south of Fresno. And Fresno, for those of you who don't know, is an exceptionally dangerous town. Now, it's great as far as commerce is concerned, for entrepreneurs in particular. But beyond that, the housing costs are very accelerated, the danger levels are very high, and we're talking like, Compton, Chicago, Baltimore, those types of levels of danger. It's pretty high there. And there just isn't much large scale opportunity for someone like myself. Now, I understand I get criticism every time I mention my actual age. I am 34. I will be 35 here within the next month, September 5th. It's coming up quickly for the big 3-5, which is just a stone's throw away from 40. And I'm looking forward to looking my age here, but maybe not too soon. So, it was very early on I had gotten that bug to be an entrepreneur. I came from a very, very poor household, uh, and I understand that each person's impression of poor is a little bit different, but, there were summers where we ate butter on bread. We didn't even toast it. It was just, and I'm not just talking like a single meal. Sometimes it would be breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and sometimes it would be for weeks on end, because finances were so tight. And I've always said that with things like poverty and substance abuse and like domestic violence, like, bad upbringings in households and stuff like that, is that you can either become, a product of your surroundings, a product of your creation, or you can learn to rise up and overcome. And my family situation is a great example of that. I have a younger brother and I have an older sister. And my sister, she's an amazing woman. She is 1 year older than myself, I believe. And she went and became an engineer and then did work with the government. And now she owns a dojo with a gentleman that I believe she's married to. And I say believe because I don't have much contact with my family currently. I was actually a runaway at 17 years old, a picture up on the Walmart walls and everything, and I didn't look back. I spoke with my father a handful of times after running away, but I didn't even go to his funeral when I learned he passed, going on 4.5 years ago now. And the relationship was just very bad growing up, and I just never felt the need to attempt to rekindle something that I never truly felt was my fault in any way, shape, or form. So there's that. And then I have a younger brother. And when we talk about these divergent paths, I feel that my sister and I, we certainly took the rise up and overcome and really be successful and really try and do something impactful and special with our lives, which is truly the position that I find myself in now. My younger brother, he got mixed into substance abuse. He had a couple of children. He's going on a second wife now. And, it was a very weird period for him after I moved out. He was probably about 14 when the divorce hit, and he already had a history of, ADHD, mild level of what I can only assume was Asperger's, and it did not manifest itself well during the divorce. And I actually haven't talked to him in quite a while. Now, I do keep in touch with his children, my nephews, and I make sure that if they need gifts, Christmas, birthday, whatever, I try and provide that for them. I come from a very broken family dynamic, so if there's any way that I can offer a better family dynamic for the next generation, I am all for it. And I know that some of the people within the group that are close with me, who know me well, people within the patron lounge in particular, they'll joke with me about kids and wanting to have kids someday. And the best way for me to explain to people why I'm not very forward thinking about wanting to start a family myself is because I came from a really bad family. I don't have an example of like how great a family dynamic can be. So because of that, I don't really have much interest in having children myself. I definitely, I love kids and I work with kids, I coach kids, I train kids, with athletics and stuff like that. And it's a wonderful time to be able to, be able to share some of the things that I'm passionate about, is toys and collectibles and other interests, climbing and stuff like that, be able to share them with kids and have them enjoy it. But I don't personally think I'm going to have kids myself. As far as my mother is concerned, I haven't seen my mother since I was 17. I do speak with her once every 4 months or so over the phone. She has opted to not see me, and I know what you're thinking, like, why wouldn't she want to see her son? It comes back to my family heritage. She is Asian, Chinese, born and raised in Hong Kong, and traditional values for certain Chinese households is that, for her, she feels as if though I came back into her life in a more forward capacity, that it would impede my ability to be successful. And she feels that that is something that would be she would feel bad about. She already feels very bad about the upbringing that I had, and I explained to her, the challenges of my upbringing is what's uniquely positioned me to be able to have such drive and such focus now. I think many people would take this opportunity to be sick and curl up in the blankets and just punch out for the week. And me, I've still been actively trying to get as much work done as I can. And I mean, well, here I am shooting and editing a video for you 3 hours before it comes out. Oh, I wish you could see how much I was coughing right now. Maybe I'll put a montage at the end. But yeah, so that's what's going on with that. I think, let's see, I want to make sure I got all the facets of that question. Parents, siblings, where are you from? Guess you're curious about where you are, so accomplished. So part of my success came early on in the fact that I started reselling when I was in high school. I would buy and sell video games in high school, and I even would write out these handmade inventory lists that I would go to the library at the beginning of school each day before I went to my first class, and I would go run photocopies of the newest inventory list. And I would distribute them to people that would be regular buyers. Sometimes it was staff or teachers, parents of friends who wanted to buy games for their kids. I mean, this was before the days of Funko Land, before the days of like Play and Trade. This was just when the market was really emerging for secondhand games, and I felt I was ahead of the curve at the time. And I would update my inventory list every evening. People would be able to place orders. They could pay in advance. I would bring them the product the following day. And then I also started doing my own repairs. And this was before the days of internet repair videos. This was before the days of internet repair guides. But it was trial and error. You know, if I could buy a broken console off a kid for $2, or if you would give it to me because it just doesn't do anything anymore, and I could take it home and I could tinker it or strip it down for parts. And this is back before the days where you needed much. You could take a PlayStation 1 and rip out the laser assembly and plug it into a similar PlayStation 1 model, and then poof, the thing would work again. Or a Q-tip with a little bit of rubbing alcohol right on the lens could get it fixed up. So starting from the age of probably about 14 or 15, I started generating revenue, and some of that revenue went back into the family. And some of it would help cover things that I needed. So I remember buying clothes for myself. I remember buying my first bike, which offered me a huge amount of freedom growing up, because I was really limited on what I could do. Things that certain families I think would take for granted, as far as your kid wanting a ride to the park, your kid wanting to a ride over to their friend's house, kids wanting to meet up with other friends, on the weekend, maybe up at the lake or something like that. None of those things ever happened for me. And I know that sounds really wild, but, I lived in a household where there wasn't hugs, there wasn't I love yous, there wasn't that sense of family and that cohesive unit that you generally see portrayed on traditional TV. It was a very, very different upbringing, and part of that really plays into why I am the way that I am now. I can't remember the letters. ENTJ, I think is what it is for the Briggs test, and it stands for a commander. And it if you go through and you read the description on it, it's pretty spot on with me. I can be very cold. I can be very direct. I can be very blind to other people's emotions and feelings. Things are very black and white with someone like myself. I'm a workhorse. I'm a perfectionist. I have OCD tendencies. Everything has a process. Everything has a best way to get it done. And I don't stand up for injustice, intolerance, indifference. Anyone that goes out of their way to knowingly or unknowingly hurt somebody else, I will jam myself in between it, and I will do what I can do to put a stop to it. And I think a lot of these traits and characteristics really did come from my upbringing, and I wouldn't change it. I know some people ask me that too, like, would you go through and change it? Would you have it different? And I don't think I would. I am very happy with who I am today, and those who do like me, they really like me, and those who don't like me, they really don't like me. But that's okay. That's really okay. And I think that's a good place to be, because it can be very difficult to get to that spot. But now that I'm here, it's really wonderful. And it's been a great transformative couple of years, to say the least. And there's been some really, really good people around me. I was watching this segment the other day, and it said, just take 10 seconds. I believe this was Mr. Rogers who was saying this too. I believe it was his Emmy speech when he won his Emmy. And he said, just take 10 seconds and close your eyes and think about the people who truly mean the most to you, the ones who've helped.
10 seconds to think of the people who have helped you become who you are. Those who have cared about you and wanted what was best for you in life. 10 seconds of silence. I'll watch the time. Whomever you've been thinking about, how pleased they must be to know the difference you feel they've made.
Define who you are today, the ones who have worked to help you become a better person, who've called you out on your flaws, who helped make you a sharper person, to help make you appreciate more of the things around you. And those who have been very critical of me, and those who are willing to stick their foot in their mouth to help me become a better person, this personality type really likes that. And, I think of Mindy and Pam and Susan and Chris Roberts and, a handful of other really great influencers. Sean Herrick too. Yeah, a lot of really great people out there. So if you have people like that in your life, take a moment and thank them. It's very important to do so. So yeah, that's the long answer to a short question. We got some other questions too, though. Also, what about the store you had? How did that all start? Why did it close? That's a great question. So, those of you who don't know, I owned a store called Jay's Game Shack. It was a video game store that I ran out of my house. And it was a crazy series of circumstances that caused that to be a thing. I was I just decided one day I wanted to collect GameCube games. And I was really excited about it too, because I mean, who doesn't like collecting things? Whether you were a kid that collected stickers, or if you're in your 50s and you collected comics, or in your 60s and you collected stamps, I mean, we all love collecting things. And if I had the opportunity to collect something that not only could I enjoy, like I could literally, open these games and throw them in my console and play them, not the sealed ones, of course, but if I could enjoy that, and while I was enjoying them, they would go up in value, and it would add more purpose to my day. I can't stress this enough. If you're not happy in life, it's probably because you don't have enough purpose. Okay? Go collect something. Go do a new hobby. Like, give your life purpose. Maybe you want to walk 5 miles every single day. Go walk a new 5 miles each day someplace different. Add purpose to your day and add value to your day. It will absolutely change you forever. So I decided to start collecting those, and I was renting a room at my late friend Chuck's house, and I started stacking up games and games and more games, and then I met other collectors, people who were collecting for the Nintendo or for the Super Nintendo and different consoles, and one of the people had made an offhand comment. Just a kind of shot in the dark. And it might have even been Chris Roberts. It was either him. Oh, God, there's another gentleman that I did work with, too. His name's eluding me right now. But somebody said something to the effect of, you have so much stuff here, you might as well open a store. And the thought really hadn't dawned on me then. And then I started doing some more trading with some other people, and I kept hearing the same thing. It's like, well, I got GameCube stuff, but I'm not really looking for money. I'm looking for more games. I'm looking for original Nintendo, Super Nintendo, 64, and stuff like that. So if you have any of that stuff, I'll start trading you. So I started buying outside of what I needed and started making value buys. And this is when I started gearing back up and starting to get more active into e-com online. You can see how messed up my hair is back here. It's because I've been laying in bed for 2 days. Yeah, I was encouraged to create more of a visible presence, setting up more shelves, creating like a walking area for people to come through. And I ended up setting up, instead of the back room, bringing it up to the front room. We had a little guest room area. And I set up what looked like a, cute little boutique inside the house that housed a bunch of video games. And I was there for a couple of years before moving to another location, again, in-house. And we really scaled things up there. We went from 4 shelves to 9 or 10 shelves. We went from having just a handful of toys to having a massive toy selection of new and used, from modern to vintage toys. And it was a blast. It truly was. And even just yesterday, Chris had said, hey, man, you really need to open another shop. And I told him, the market's changing a little bit. Times are different right now, and I was at a very unique place in my life. I don't know if I could do that again, especially here in California. Long story short, as far as the shop closing, we got sued. We got hit with an American with Disabilities Act lawsuit. And due to the nature of the non-disclosure agreement, I have to suggest that you go to Google to get more details about that. And you can just type in Jay's Game Shack into Google, and you will get results from different news outlets across America talking about what had happened. And it's truly unfortunate that things happen that way, but I don't believe we would be having this discussion today on this camera with this mic at this time if it wasn't for the shop closing. And I do feel all things happen for a reason, and that all people are meant to meet other people at certain times in their life. It's just whether or not they're ready to receive that person into their life, based on where they're at, based on where the other person's at. So, yeah, I'm very happy to be doing this instead. I really feel like I have found my calling in helping other people be successful online. and be able to make a very good living through e-commerce and to be able to answer very difficult questions that other people don't want to take the time to find the answer to. I feel that that's my ultimate purpose is to help other people. And I know sometimes when I say that, other people will look at me and they'll have this very almost condescending look in their eyes and I think that's the way society brings people up, is to believe that anyone who says that they're doing something good for somebody else just to do it must be full of shit. That there's no way. What's his motive? What's his angle? What's his logic? What's his reasoning behind it? I really like helping other people. And I feel that my life's work will be to help other people. And I feel that this is simply a means to an end to get there. And there's a lot of ways and a lot of things that I would like to do. And I feel that this is just the entry level vessel to being able to help more people in time. And I just hope that every day I can get a little bit better at doing that. So, Amy, I want to thank you personally for taking the time to write those 2 questions. It was very thoughtful of you. Let's take a look at a eBay question that we have next. This one is from, this one is from Boo Dolores Tyler. Now, Boo Dolores has been on the group forever now. Okay, let me see if we can find out. It doesn't say it here. I'm almost certain she's been on the page for over 3 years now. Maybe even longer. She was one of the early members, but we don't see her interact too much. She says, I want to grow my eBay store. I'm a part-time clothes reseller. How can I grow to make $1,000 to $2,000 profit a month? Is that possible being a part-time clothes reseller? Well, anything is possible when it comes to the world of e-commerce, but sometimes we have to ask ourselves, are our goals framed up in a way to where the amount of effort that we're willing to put in to get there makes them attainable? So to back that up a moment, let's say my goal is to make $1 million in the next year doing reselling. But my amount of effort that I'm willing to put in is only 10 hours a week. Now, am I good enough to spend 520 hours and turn that into $1 million? Well, currently, no. My skill set does not support that. Now, are there things that I could do to be able to enhance my skill set to be able to get to that point? Certainly. I could bring on additional staff. I could maybe work more with direct vendors. I could create some type of sales funnel, some type of marketing engine, SEO optimization. There's a ton of different things I could do to help me reach that target goal. But then I also have to ask myself, how important is getting to that goal to me? Because with your situation, you left me with a pretty broad range, 1,000 to 2,000. Okay, I would say until you know what your goal is specifically, it's going to be much, 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 much harder to actually get there. Because if 1,000 is literally half the work of 2,000. So let's just go off the assumption you want 2,000. But I would say first figure out why you need the money and why the number is important. Okay, if you're just looking to save money and put it in the bank, you're probably not going to work as hard for it as if it was rent or one of your bills, or if you had a big expense coming up, a car payment or something to that effect. Once you've fully understood what your goal is, it makes writing the roadmap to that goal that much easier, because we know the minimum amount of work necessary to achieve a goal once we know what the goal is. Me personally, when I'm working, I like to bring in probably $6,000 a month gross doing resale. And the reason is I don't need and or desire more than that. And again, I understand we live in a society that worships money, and the thought that somebody would want to make less money when they knowingly could make more money seems a bit ridiculous when we first hear it. Again, it comes across as pompous. It comes across as disingenuous. But extra money doesn't really serve me any benefit. I have enough money on hand to execute on a large buy if need be. I have plenty of income coming in from the amount of work that I do now, and that amount of work makes me happy. Okay, I could double the number of hours that I am working, but I don't feel that the double in revenue would be worth the double in time that I would be losing. So again, it's going to boil down to that. So let's get into the actual grid of it, though. Let's get into the real root of the question, which is, can that be done as a part-time reseller? Can you make $1,000, $2,000 a month part-time doing clothes? Yes, 100%. I don't even do clothes personally, but if you're asking if $200 to $50 to $500 a week in profits just doing clothing is possible, just doing part-time, 100%. I would say that if you're not doing that yet, you may want to ask yourself where the kinks in your chain are. Are you not finding enough stuff? Have you sourced to go see if you can find more locations? Have you tried swap meets? Have you tried yard sales? Have you tried running ads online? Have you tried tapping into your warm market and letting people know what you buy and sell in? Okay. Have you tried leaving your home area, maybe traveling to a town that's within an hour away or a handful of towns, try and find more inventory? How much effort are you going to put in to achieve those goals that you want to achieve? So I'd say if you want to reach those numbers, if that's the kink, if you're not getting enough stuff, identify and resolve that kink. If you have the inventory, okay, but it's just not getting listed, then we need to ask ourselves, why is it not getting listed? Is your workflow too slow? Is there things in life that are happening that are distracting you from getting the job done? What is it that's causing that? And then we can even go a step further and we can say, let's look at expenses. What can be done to reduce expense cost? How much are you spending on packaging? How much time are you investing into your pack and ship? And then we can even go a step back and say, how do your photos look? How does your store look? How are your descriptions looking? I would say that to be able to successfully make that jump from wherever you're at now to where you want to be, we need to identify what is the thing that's keeping you from getting from point A to point B, and then ask, what can we do to resolve that problem? So if you'd like to set up a time to have a call, I think we even did a call once before, now that I think about it. I think we had a call, over 2 years ago now. So I'd love to follow up with you and see why we haven't hit those mark yet, because I think we even covered some of those things. And we have one last question here, and I left it open. I said, hey guys, ask as many questions as you'd like. I'd be happy to take them. I think we got 3 or 4 today, which is fine. This question comes from Donna. That's a cute last name. Swirzewski. Donna Swirzewski comments, tea with honey, lemon, and a spoonful of whiskey usually does the trick for me. I've tried it sans honey and lemon, and that's really worked out well. My question is, if you could share a few non-clothing niche areas. That's another great point too. Clothing is hard. There's an easier way to make a buck. I wouldn't recommend anyone getting into clothing personally. I think that's the long way to financial freedom on e-com, and it's why I do so little clothing myself. My question is, if you could share a few non-clothing niche areas that you found over time to be worth selling, even if they aren't quick sellers. I think of these things as great quote-unquote shelf fillers in my eBay store, especially things that people generally have come to eBay to buy, especially when they're vintage or used, so usually aren't sold on Amazon. Fantastic question. I couldn't be happier with that question. I think I even left a little comment stating that as well on our group. Yes. So we call some of these things long tail items that aren't going to necessarily sell right away, and they can take 3 months, 6 months, a year to, I've had some items online for 3 years plus before they finally got the pop. And you're asking what categories are some of the ones to look into. I would say a great one is board games. Board games have essentially leveled off completely. We know where the baseline is on all vintage board games, and they're either staying there or they're starting to move vertical. And we're talking, your bookshelf games, your 3M, your GMT, your Avalon Hill brand board games. They're all either at base or they're moving vertical right now. So buying board games and placing them online and letting them sit, they will almost always get to their market value at some point in time on their way up. And then it's a matter of just waiting till the right person comes along. With stuff like that, taking a little bit of extra time and attention to outline any errors, outline any missing pieces, being thoughtful and methodical about how you list, and ask yourself, if I was a buyer and I was looking to buy this game, is this listed in a way that would entice me and make me want to buy this item? If somebody puts in their description, not sure if it's complete, Well, it better be really, really cheap comparative to the guy who says it is complete. So be mindful of a few things like that. And yeah, but yeah, board games have done really well for me. I've done tens of thousands of dollars in vintage board games. I love the category. It's generally very easy to work with. You'll notice I work with a lot of things that are real easy to look up and search. It just makes my life easy. And then another category is stuffed animals, and I talk about this all the time. It's one of the most easily overlooked categories online, and it's because you can go into almost any Goodwill or thrift store or anything like that, and there's gonna be a massive bin of them, anywhere between $1 to $4 a piece, sometimes even less. And my average stuffed animal sale is usually anywhere between $15 to $30, with some exceptions, some outliers that are, in the $100 to $200 range, which happens sometimes. But as a whole, stuffed animals is another great niche category where things can kind of sit around and marinate, and you can make some bucks on them over time. That's all the questions for today, guys. I appreciate those of you who did take the time to send them in, and with my show, I always try and leave everyone with a little bit of a thought. And, we talked about a couple of times today, but I guess the thought that I want to leave you all with is to just simply go be a decent human being. And I understand for some of you that's going to come absolutely natural, and it's just no difficulty to you whatsoever. But I gotta stress this, guys. Just go out of your way and help somebody. I heard somebody talking about this the other day, and I've even started doing it myself. And it's something so simple and so innocent that anyone can do. And I take my pennies with me now when I get my change from the store, and I'll either toss it on the ground within that area of the grocery store, between the double doors or right outside the door on the ground, right on the concrete as I walk out. Or if I'm walking around downtown, I'll place them on the edges of some of the windowsills sometimes when I'm walking by. And it's the epitome of selflessness when you do something like that. Because I know me placing this penny, it's literally costing me a penny, and it's taking half a second of my time. But I want you to think for a moment the joy that is experienced by the person who picks that penny up. Okay? It's probably going to be a child, and maybe it's a homeless person, maybe it's somebody who's just a little down on their luck and they see a penny head side up and they decide to grab the bad boy, you know? But just think, for 1 cent, you can leave a little drop of joy for somebody else, and never know, maybe 1 in 100, you maybe make somebody's day. So consider, and I've said this before, consider doing something really selfless for somebody out there in need right now. Pass the joy, and just have a good one. I'm sorry I couldn't make the show for you guys today. You'll see a supercut of all my coughs here at the end, but just remember, if you don't make that money, somebody else will. Have a wonderful day, and thank you, as always, for inviting me back into your household another Sunday. What is this, like the 30th this year? Thank you so much, guys. I'll talk with you real soon. Okay. If you're not finding enough, so, I said up to 20 would be great.